You look at this Dolphins roster right now, and there's something sticking out like a sore thumb. The edge rushers. Channing Good, Cameron Bell, Daishin Kamara, and Skylar Murphy. For guys who have been flying around in camp. Each with their flashes. Each showing they could make a 53-man roster somewhere. And yet, here's the problem. The math doesn't care about flashes. If 2 of them make it here, the other 2 aren't just sitting around waiting for a PS spot. They're gone. Picked up before you can even refresh your notifications. And no, this isn't Madden where you can just throw together some neat little trade package to plug your holes and balance the depth chart. Reality's colder. Reality says you'd have to find another team drowning in defensive backs the way Miami's drowning in edge defenders. And even then, what makes you think they're shipping one out? The Raiders just pulled a move like that with the Eagles, sure, but that's an exception, not a blueprint. And let's be blunt. None of these 4 are proven enough that another team's front office is pounding the table to trade a corner for them. You can't flip a back-end edge for a legitimate upgrade at CB. That's not stubbornness. That's just how this league works. And speaking of corners, it's impossible to talk about this defense without touching on the one spot that gives off that uneasy buzz, the secondary. Injuries haven't just been bad luck for Miami. They've been a pattern. Some call it a curse. Others blame conditioning. Truth. It feels more cursed than anything else. Because no matter who's in charge of stretching and hydration, you don't get this many bizarre, perfectly timed, roster-wrecking injuries without wondering if some cosmic scriptwriter has it in for you. Early in camp, Storm Duck looked like a pleasant surprise. But here's the honest take. The O-line depth is sitting on the wrong side of the comfort scale. Until they prove otherwise, it's a weak spot. And yes, injuries will happen, because they always do. The trick is whether they hit the wrong positions at the wrong time. If Tua stays upright, fine. But history says you'll lose someone significant somewhere before September even ends. Let's stop dancing around it. The tight end room is a sore subject. Some call it the worst in the league. That's not hyperbole. It's an assessment built on what's actually on the field. Darren Waller is the hinge here. If he somehow turns back into the guy who was terrorizing defenses in Vegas, this whole conversation changes. But if he's a shadow of that player, or worse, doesn't see the field, then what you've got left is forgettable. Functional at best, invisible at worst. Back to corners for a second. They're fine as long as the pass rush is breathing down a quarterback's neck. That's the ugly truth of modern defense. If you give a QB time, these corners can't hold forever. They've looked okay in camp, but camp isn't September, and camp doesn't come with game plans designed to shred you. Without a pass rush, this group becomes a liability in a hurry. There's also been talk about Asante Samuel. Is he cleared? Has he even been close? Look, if he was ready, everyone would know. Agents don't sit on that kind of info. They'd leak it, he'd post it, and the hype train would be rolling. There's also the reality that veteran contracts lock in fully guaranteed money if they're on a roster week 1. That makes teams cautious. They wait. They bide their time. Samuel's silence? That's your answer. Some of you remember the best player to wear the number series. Stopped at number 35. Why? Simple. Not enough people cared. The responses didn't justify the space. But here's your rapid-fire list from 34 down to 26. Ricky Williams, Woody Bennett, Marcus Thigpen, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Nate Jones, Dion Dyer, Kenyon Drake, Benny Malone, Joe Auer, Brock Marion, Raheem Mostert, Norm Bulake, Bernie Parmalee, Ron Davenport, Alec Ingold, Sam Madison, Lifford Hobley, Brandon Jones, Don McNeil, Bobby McCain, Devon Achane, Terrell Buckley, Lorenzo Hampton, Gary Davis, Jarvis Williams, Lamar Smith, Lamar Miller. Culture change? That phrase gets tossed around like candy every offseason. Does it even mean anything? In truth, this group might look more focused, more committed than last year. But don't fool yourself. Culture only matters until the first 3-game losing streak. Then it's execution, talent, and health that matter. The rest is window dressing. Now, the quarterback debate. 2018 versus 2020 draft classes. On one hand, 2018 brought 3 MVPs, Allen, Lamar, and Mahomes. No Super Bowl wins among them, but talent stacked so high it bends the argument. 2020? Burrow, Tua, Herbert, Love, Hurts. Statistically loaded, more Super Bowl appearances, 1 win. No MVPs, but deeper overall. If you're going pure top end, 2018 wins. Allen and Lamar are top 2 guys in the league right now in terms of game-breaking ability. But the 2020 class? It has a breadth of quality that makes it hard to ignore. Here's one that's more fun, which is more likely this season. Tua wins MVP or Jalen Phillips wins Defensive MVP. Easy. MVP is a quarterback's award. You don't have to like it, but it's baked into how voting works. Tua has the weapons, the system, and the narrative potential. Phillips would have to post a season for the ages just to get mentioned. Let's talk about those joint practices with the Bears. Wide receivers getting lit up. People asking if it's bad ball placement from the QBs or just overly aggressive defenders. Here's the truth. It was excessive. You see physical play in camp, sure, but this crossed that line. I've been to enough of these to know when it's just competitiveness and when it's unnecessary. That was unnecessary. And then there's the deep passing game problem. Everyone assumed Mike McDaniel spent the offseason crafting the antidote to last year's mid to deep ball stallouts. Have we seen it yet? No, but it's early. For weeks from kickoff. He's not showing anything now. Not to the media. Not to opponents. And maybe not to the players until the script flips for week 1. Trades for a corner? It sounds nice when you say it fast. In reality, no one's giving you a quality CB just because you need one. If they're any good, their team's keeping them. If they're available, it's because someone already decided they weren't worth keeping. And if they are good and available, the price will be steep. And Miami has to decide if that's a hill worth dying on. The thing about all this is you can feel how close this team is to being balanced, but not quite there. The edges have talent to spare, but the secondary's walking a tightrope. The tight ends might as well be a one-man bet on Waller's health. The offensive line's one injury away from disaster. And the quarterback, for all his accuracy and rhythm, is one awkward fall away from turning this into a very different season. So you circle back to that roster math at the start. Good Bell, Kamara, Murphy. For names. For cases to make the team. Too likely to make it. Too likely to vanish the second cuts hit. Could one of them be flipped for depth elsewhere? Maybe in a fantasy trade simulator. But here in reality, the league doesn't work on fair swaps. It works on leverage. And right now, Miami doesn't have it in the spots it needs most. And that's the constant push-pull of building an NFL roster. You load up one position, you bleed in another. You keep a vet, you stun a rookie. You take a risk on upside. You expose yourself to injury gaps.